Part 30. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 291. Admiralty Marineford. A dog-headed warship slowly moored in the port. This guy Garp jumped off the warship with a little baby in his arms. He seemed to be in a good mood. Luyu finally gave birth to Ace, but she also lost her life. Garp was in a very sad mood at that time. Although Luyu was Roger's woman and had sheltered Roger for so long, it was fair to say she was guilty. But after living with Luyu for a period of time, Garp felt that Luyu was not an evil woman, she was innocent and kind, and a respectable person. After finishing Luyu's funeral, Garp took Ace back to the Navy headquarters. Along the way, Garp's mood gradually improved. In particular, Ace is very lively and cute, which makes Garp feel like he is a grandfather, and his heart is full of hope, thinking about training the little guy Ace into an excellent navy in the future. First, he went to the marshal's office and reported everything about the South China Sea. He said that he couldn't find anything about Roger's bloodline. This mission has come to an end. The Navy and the world government are not sure whether Roger has blood, so they can't just create one out of thin air, right? After inspecting for so long, nothing was found, so it should be gone. After leaving the marshal's office, Garp hugged Ace and immediately went to find Zifa, an old comrade in arms, to see how he was doing recently. When I saw Zifa was drinking tea in the office. After retiring from the position of admiral, Zifa felt relaxed all over. He took the time to go to the officer training camp for guidance every day, and then he could fish and drink tea. It seems that he has found a common topic with Porisalino in this regard, and the relationship between the two of them as master and disciple has become closer. Oh? Is this your child? It's so cute. Zifa took Ace from Garp's hand and said with a smile. Garp's face turned dark and said, "Don't accuse someone of their innocence out of thin air. This is not my child, but my grandson." The bloodline of that guy Dalag? Zifa asked in surprise. Neither, be your grandson. Garp's face became deflated again, and he spoke. Zifa smiled and didn't ask anything. Just let Garp say whatever he said. If you ask about this kind of thing, there will be no other result besides embarrassing people. What's the little guy's name? Zifa asked while teasing Ace. Ace, Portkas d Ace, Garp said softly. Ace? Ace, Ace. Ha 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 ha, it seems that you have great expectations for this child. Zifa asked with a smile. No, I'm going to train him into an excellent navy, Garp said proudly. That bastard Darag is useless. It depends on whether Ace can take over in the future. As he spoke, Garp looked at Zifa's empty arm again and asked, "Is it nothing?" Hand? Zifa said nonchalantly, paused for a moment, smiled and said, "It's nothing. I feel a lot more relaxed without one hand. Do you think it's strange?" Weird, Garp murmured with some emotion, and then said, "Although O'Hara's matter was a complete success on the surface, in fact, warring states also suffered a loss at the hands of Orgrim, right?" Zifa's expression changed slightly. There was silence for a while, and then he said helplessly, 10 warships, and many elites have been sacrificed. Do you think we will suffer a loss? It just means that we can get by in terms of face. That bastard, is he really that strong now? Garp frowned slightly and said. Yes, don't underestimate him. Zifa nodded and responded. Had known so, alas, forget it, it's too late to say anything now, Garp murmured with some emotion, then looked at Ace and said, "Little Ace, grow up quickly. When you become an excellent navy, help Grandpa and I kill that bastard Orgrim. Got it?" Ah ha 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 ha. The two chatted for a few more words, and then Zifa asked, "What are you going to do about Ace? Take it with you?" "No, I have been on vacation for such a long time. Next, I should be busy. How can I take such a young child with me?" Garp shook his head and said. Then stay in Marineford? I can help you take a look. Zifa said with a smile. Garp nodded first, but then seemed to remember something. He quickly shook his head and said, "No, we can't let this child grow up in Marineford. I have already suffered this loss, how could we repeat the same mistakes?" The boy Darag grew up in Marineford. Garp now feels that maybe it was for this reason that he kept thinking about justice since he was a child, and finally got to this point. So he ate, as the saying goes, the farthest distance from understanding is longing. If Ace had been longing for the Navy since he was a child, he might not be able to understand the justice of the Navy in the future. On the contrary, those who are outside and have experienced people who have experienced the horrors of the world and seen the real sea can understand the justice of the Navy after joining the Navy. So Garp is planning to foster Ace elsewhere. Within the four seas, the place where our naval rule is the most stable is the East China Sea. Every year when the Navy is recruited there, it is the hottest and the atmosphere is the best. People there generally have a good impression of the Navy, and it happens to be my hometown. So I plan to arrange for Ace to grow up in the East China Sea, where he can accept the less intense atmosphere, and with the guidance of my grandfather, he will definitely join the Navy enthusiastically in the future, right? Garp said happily. Zifa really wanted to take Ace with him. After all, when he was young, his family was broken up and his son and wife died. Over the years, he has not started a family again. If he has a child now, he is very free and can take care of it. But now that Garp had his own ideas and decisions, which indeed sounded good, Zifa didn't say anything in the end. While the two were chatting, the Warring States General opened the door and walked in. When he saw Ace, his eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something. Everyone doesn't know that in fact, the Warring States period secretly adopted an adopted son, and that was all many years ago. This adopted son is now in the Navy. During the recent period, Warring States has also been thinking of arranging some important work for him. It was this job that was slightly dangerous, which made Warring States a little unsure about paying attention. Yes, this adopted son is Don Quixote Rocinante, who is also Doflamingo's biological brother. Unlike Doflamingo, who is inherently evil, Rocinante is simply a model of the Holy Mother. Warring States liked his adopted son very much, but he did not give him so many privileges. He just let him experience in the Navy. Find an opportunity in the future for him to make meritorious deeds and become an excellent naval general or something. I have to say that the Warring States period was much better than the father of all Whitebeard when it came to accepting sons. Although Whitebeard has so many sons, the quality is really not comparable to that of the Warring States period. Looking at people's perspective in the Warring States period, being a general is different. If you accept a son, you will be punished by the Tianlong people. Looking at it this way, he is riding on the highest legal basis of the world government. Looking around the world, who can compare? The job that the Warring States period wanted to arrange for Rocinante was for him to sneak back into the Don Quixote family and become an undercover agent of the Navy. Recently, Sengoku has also discovered that Doflamingo has an unusual relationship with Kazguro's Orgrim, and it is not just a simple cooperative relationship. Not long ago, the world government purchased a sufficient amount of smuggled arms from him. This incident gave Warring States a bit of a toothache, but in the end they couldn't say anything more. After all these smuggled arms fell into the hands of their navy. In a sense, it can be regarded as enhancing the strength of their navy. The Navy and the CP agency are in a competitive relationship. The CP agency took the lead in O'Hara's affairs and the arms business, and they played an important role in this. On the contrary, the Navy was not doing so well, which made Warring States, an admiral who aspired to become a naval marshal, think a lot more. There is no doubt that the CP agency must have arranged a powerful spy on Orgrim. If the Navy wants to catch up with the CP organization in this regard, it must make some achievements, but directly arranging people to join the Warhammer Pirates is a bit nonsense. I wonder how many years it will take to get to Orgrim's side? After all, there is no shortage of capable people around Orgrim. But Rocinante was different. He was Doflamingo's younger brother, and Doflamingo had a very close relationship with Orgrim. Once Rocinante becomes this undercover agent, he might be able to use Doflamingo's relationship to obtain some confidential information about the Warhammer Pirates. At that time, the Navy will be able to turn from passive to active. What a good thing this is. However, Warring States has not made up his mind until now, because he knows how dangerous this matter is. It is like dancing on a tightrope. If he is not careful, Rocinante will die without a burial place. After driving these thoughts out of his mind, Sengoku smiled and said to Garp, "You are finally back. I am very busy here. How about it? Do you want to become a general?" "Do not make jokes," Garp waved his hand. After a few people chatted for a while, Sengoku straightened his face and said, "Garp, according to our intelligence, Durag seems to be looking for Nicole Orbia." When the matter of Durag was mentioned, Garp's face darkened, and he said in a cold voice, "I have already figured it out. Don't worry about that bastard's matter. You can do whatever you want. I will avoid suspicion. Don't get involved in these things." Warring States was a little relieved after hearing this. It seems that Garp's vacation is still useful. I'm afraid that if Garp doesn't understand this clearly and has a problem with his position, then the Navy will have some trouble if they want to start work. However, the Warring States period also had to worry about Garp's emotions, so he said, "In fact, our Navy will not pay too much attention to Durag's matter. The Marshal has already communicated with the superiors. Our Navy can at most help. The main thing is to leave it to the CP agency." After Garp heard this, his expression became a little better. No matter how bastard Drag is, he is still Garp's son. And if the Navy tried to deal with him vigorously, although Garp would not intervene, he would still feel a thorn in his heart. But now, this matter is handed over to the CP agency to handle. Although Garp still feels uncomfortable, it is much better than having the Navy handle it. With Dalag's ability, he might be able to make those CP dogs suffer some losses. Afterwards, several people discussed the current situation of the Navy, so that Garp, who had not been back for a long time, could familiarize himself with the current situation as soon as possible so that he could join the work. It didn't take long for everyone on the sea to know that this guy Garp had returned to Marineford. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 292. In the year 1503 of the Highwind calendar, the sea once again experienced a year of undercurrents, but no huge waves were caused. Douglas Barrett was wandering around the islands in Totland. Although he occasionally attracted the attention of the Big Mom pirates, he never caused any trouble. But it was precisely because of his research behavior that the relationship between the Big Mom pirates and the Warhammer pirates gradually became tense. Orgrim and others knew that Barrett was studying the policy form and military form of the Big Mom pirates, so as to take the essence and discard the dross and come back to shine for the Warhammer pirates. But Charlotte Lingling didn't know. She couldn't figure out what this bastard Barrett was wandering around on the various islands of Totland. Although there is no trouble, a cotter of the Warhammer pirates is wandering around in his own territory, how can he feel comfortable? You think this guy is here to get information, isn't he being too presumptuous? Do you think our Big Mom pirates are fools? You may say that this guy is here to cause trouble, but he is indeed very polite and almost always acts according to pirate rules. He follows the rules set by the local Big Mom pirate group and does not cause any unpleasant things. Due to Barrett's great strength, Charlotte Lingling cannot just ask people to deal with him. Only herself and Katakuri in the Big Mom pirates are confident of being able to take him down. The rest of her sons and daughters, it will take more than a few. Just like this, it's not a foolproof solution. After all, this guy can run away, and he also drives a submarine. Therefore, for nearly a year, although Charlotte Lingling was paying attention to Douglas Barrett, she did not take any targeted action. He was deeply afraid that by accident, this incident would become a trigger and start a large-scale all-out war with the Warhammer pirates. But they don't want to let Barrett go too far in Totland. Therefore, this pressure was passed on to the Warhammer pirates. In various sea areas of the New World, if the members of the Big Mom pirates met the Warhammer pirates, they would take the initiative to provoke them. As time went by, the provocations turned into small disputes, and the small disputes turned into local fights. Then, the hostility between the two sides became more and more intense. Almost as long as they meet at sea, if they don't give each other a couple of shots to enjoy themselves, they may feel that their posture is not right when they sleep that night. The Warhammer pirates' fleet led by Sphinx and Katarina Dupont often clashed fiercely with the Big Mom pirates' fleet, causing minor bloodshed every time. As Eniro, Mihawk, and others roamed the sea and participated in these disputes, the cotters of both sides often fought. The entire New World has become unstable due to the escalating conflict between the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates. However, many thoughtful people have also discovered that it seems that both sides are suppressing this situation within a certain level and doing their best to restrain the emergence of larger conflicts. It seems that no one on either side wants to really start a full-scale war against pirates. Therefore, the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates are currently in a state of fighting but not breaking. What is even more surprising is that other pirate groups or major forces would have felt that this kind of continuous hostility and confrontation would cause the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates to fall into a vicious cycle. It is an act of weakness that continues to bleed their power. But the real direction of the situation is different from what most people guessed. Whether it is the Big Mom pirates or the Warhammer pirates, it is true that in this process, a large number of pirate subordinates are constantly being lost. This also means that their economic interests must be continuously transfused to these places. The theory is that, should continue to be weak. But these two families seem to have a small amount of money. While spending money to recruit new pirates from the New World, they continued to maintain a relatively fierce conflict, allowing these new pirates to continuously join the fight. Middle. Over time, although many people died and a lot of money was lost on both sides, the fighting effectiveness became stronger and stronger. When everyone really realized this fact, they discovered that this long-term conflict without breaking up was the unspoken understanding between the Big Mom pirates and the Warhammer pirates. These two pirate groups with big businesses are using this cruel method to train elite pirate combat troops in actual combat, and letting the cotters of each family take turns to fight. It seems that they are constantly accumulating battles between masters. Experience. From the middle of 1502 to the middle of 1503 now, during this whole year, both sides have revealed a momentum, that is, they are rich and have no shortage of money. The Big Mom pirates govern the various islands of Totland, with a very large population and a fairly complete system. They also control the largest food business in the world, with various high-end snacks, cakes, biscuits, etc. They take the bulk of the candies and stuff. So they are really wealthy. The Warhammer pirates, relying on the arms business in the Dark World, relying on an energy potion called Spiritual Boy, and relying on the increasingly prosperous economy of the deep-sea free trade zone, have become increasingly capable of making gold. What was the war about? Just to make money and improve the economy. Especially for an industry like pirates, where the only one with breasts is the mother. Everyone makes money by working hard. If you don't pay, who will work hard for you? Precisely because both sides have money, when they discovered that continuous and controllable conflicts and wars could bring enough benefits, the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates had a tacit agreement to use Douglas Barrett as the leader of the war excuse to maintain this tense state of fighting but not breaking. Otherwise, if another pirate group had been fighting a year-long war, they would have been defeated long ago. They must have enough financial resources to support such a war. Originally, with the financial strength of the Warhammer pirates, even with arms and other businesses, they could not compare to the Big Mom pirates. But soon, Doflamingo discovered that the more fierce the war in the New World, the more chaos involved, the more prosperous the arms business became. In order to avoid being wiped out by two huge pirate groups, various countries it seems to have entered into a tense arms race, buying arms on a large scale. Let Orgrim's business take it to the next level, and even occasionally, the more you fight, the more money you make. After tasting this sweetness, Orgrim will naturally not stop this low-level war. At first, he just didn't want to bow his head in front of that dead old woman Charlotte Lingling, so when faced with provocation, he ordered the Warhammer pirates to fight back directly. Later, he took the initiative to provoke the Big Mom pirates, until now it has developed into this situation. The biggest beneficiary of this war is not Orgrim and Charlotte Lingling, but Kaido, the melon eater. At least that's what it looks like from an economic point of view, aside from the ever-growing number of pirate combatants. After all, Kaido is also an arms businessman. He lives in Wano and is an otaku. One day, out of nowhere, the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates start a fight. The fight became more and more intense. Originally Kaido was just watching the show, but soon he found that his business was getting better and better, and he suddenly became the biggest winner. On a Nagashima in Wano, Kaido was looking at this quarter's report in his hand. Sure enough, arms revenue this quarter increased by about 20% compared with the previous quarter. Holding a gourd-shaped wine bottle in one hand, Kaido took 2 sips of strong wine. Kaido burped with satisfaction, then smiled and said, "Although I don't know why Orgrim and Lingling started fighting, it's obvious. I gained a lot this time. Boss Kaido, maybe we should take this opportunity to enter the thermal weapons business to squeeze the space of the Warhammer pirates, and let the Big Mom pirates carry out war restraint. A two-pronged approach should be able to steadily weaken the Warhammer pirates." "The thieves," Yin said in a deep voice. Kaido was stunned for a moment, then looked at Yin with dissatisfaction and said, "If you do this, who will I become? Wasn't there a tacit understanding before? Orgrim makes hot weapons, and I make cold weapons. They monopolize the entire arms market, and the price is in our hands. The cooperation is very good. If we make this arrangement now, wouldn't it seem like Kaido has betrayed his trust?" Yin was stunned when he heard Kaido's words. "Breach of trust? Brother, we are pirates. What's more, although we have a tacit understanding, we have never signed any treaty with the Warhammer pirates, and we have never agreed to it at all. What, why are you betraying your trust? I think you just don't want to offend Orgrim, right?" Before Yin could speak, Kaido thought of something, his eyes lit up, he slapped the table, and said excitedly, "Yes, it is precisely because Orgrim and Lingling started the war that my arms are selling so prosperously. So to think about it differently, I took advantage of Orgrim, right?" Yin was stunned again. Although there seemed to be some problems with Kaido's thinking, it seemed that he was right. Before Yin could speak, Quinn said, "Yes, boss, this is true. You guys think, am I, Kaido, a guy who values love and justice?" Kaido suddenly asked. As soon as he said this, Jack, a little guy who looked very young, immediately said, "Of course, Boss Kaido, you are extremely righteous." "Just kidding, Kaido is their boss, not to mention that Kaido is indeed pretty good in these aspects. At least he can be called affectionate and righteous to his cotters. Even if he is mean and ungrateful, at this time at this moment, who dares to come out and say no? Are you afraid of getting a mace?" Kaido listened to Jack's words and nodded with satisfaction. "He is indeed my favorite subordinate. He is quite upright and very similar to me." Ah! Jack was picked up by Kaido when he was a child and was brought up by his side. Although Kaido is not very good at teaching, Jack is Kaido's close minister after all. The atmosphere is there, making Jack and Kaido very similar since they were young. One word is reckless and two words are headed iron. No matter whether you can't beat him or not, you have to beat him first anyway. So Kaido has always liked this kid Jack. In recent times, Jack has become a little more mature. Kaido Dao began to train him to become a cotter. Since I, Kaido, am very affectionate and loyal, and Orgrim has brought me so many benefits, I have to show it, right? Kaido stared at a pair of dragon eyes and looked at Yin and Quinn and asked. Yin wanted to dissuade him, but looking at Kaido's gleaming pupils, he knew that if he opened his mouth to refute now, Kaido's boss would he will be unhappy. If he is unhappy, he will not get any good results. Quinn, a bastard, always wants to find opportunities to step on his head. How can he give him such an opportunity? Therefore, Jin ignored his conscience and nodded quickly. Said that's how it should be. Ha 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 ha, that's what I'm saying. Kaido laughed happily, and then said enthusiastically, then I will write him a letter of thanks. By the way, I would like to invite this guy Orgrim to come to our Wano country, a Nagashima, so that I can have a good exchange with him. Yes, Kaido's current thinking is very simple. Because of that bastard Odin, and there are indeed some resistance forces in Wano. So, Kaido can't leave here for the time being, but as soon as his reverse thinking starts, there is no need to say I have to go find Orgrim. I can invite Orgrim as a guest. I didn't have any good excuses before. Now, the arms business is so booming. Isn't it too much for me to thank him? And then I can invite him accordingly. It makes sense for him to be a guest. He did what he said. Kaido drank down the drink in excitement, then laughed loudly and said, bring me a pen and paper. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 293. The Island of Eternal Night, Avalon. In the restaurant in the Orgrim courtyard, a group of cotters gathered here, and it was extremely lively. Sphinx, a little lowly, still looks like she has not grown up. At this time, there were several circles of bandages wrapped around her neck, and one hand was hung on her chest by a triangle scarf. It was obvious that the injury was not healed. But she seemed to be in high spirits, with one foot on the stool and a heroic posture. But with her lowly figure and miserable appearance, she looked somewhat funny. But she didn't have this consciousness. She waved her good other hand and excitedly boasted to everyone about something. It was too late, but soon, I threw away the revolver in my hand, took out the hand cannon, and fired a shot at the idiot Owen's head, sending him flying directly. If it weren't for the idiot's domineering attitude, he would be pretty good. I shot him in the head with one shot, the Sphinx said in a roar. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone applauded happily. This wave of warm applause also made the Sphinx even more disgusting. Then she listened to her. He continued to brag, I shot that idiot away with one shot. That bastard Charlotte Dafa couldn't seem to sit still anymore. He and Irving wanted to join forces to deal with me. Unlike Irving, that Dafa guy is still a bit powerful. His abilities are weird. Weirdly, a guy who looked like a jinn came out. I blew that guy up many times, but he always reappeared. Then Owen jumped out again, which made me a little stalemate. In the end, the ship sank. If there weren't people around to help me, I'm afraid I would have suffered a big loss. Sphinx, was that where you were injured by Dafu and the others? Rengar asked curiously. Sphinx nodded domineeringly, and then said with joy, it seems that my injury is not serious, but Owen's idiot is even worse, and Dafu is not good either. If you insist on saying that, can only be said to be a lose-lose situation. It's a tie, I didn't lose. Everyone couldn't help laughing after hearing this, knowing that this was a good-looking statement from Sphinx. In fact, in this naval battle, the Warhammer pirates were at a disadvantage. In terms of winning or losing, to be fair, it is said that the fleet led by Sphinx lost. But this is also a normal phenomenon. It has been fighting for a year. Rengar and others have more or less been on the front line, and even Beckman has gone once. He fought with Katakuri, and finally suppressed Katakuri and won the naval battle. If I have to say it, only Orgrim has not taken action so far. Of course, Charlotte Lingling also never took action. After all, the king doesn't see the king. If the two of them end up, the situation will not be so easy to control. If they really want to fight, the New World will fall into the two big pirate groups in minutes. In a total war, that would be of no benefit to anyone. Generally speaking, in this year's continuous low-level war, both sides have won and lost, and they have also been very restrained and tried not to accumulate that kind of particularly strong hatred. For example, they all have a tacit understanding not to kill the other party's cotters, so as not to kill some important cotters, and the situation will inevitably become untenable. So although Sphinx does not admit that he lost, it is not a big deal. She just smiled and no one exposed her. After all, it was not that Sphinx had never won before. On the contrary, she had won a lot. Did you hear that? Daipeng seems to be going for Pero this time, and he doesn't know if he can win. Didn't he lose to that guy last time? Neiman said with a smile to Gangplank beside her. Gangplank also smiled, shook his head and said, I don't think we can win. Although Pero is not famous, Katakuri has not come yet. He is powerful, but in fact, as the eldest son of the Big Mom pirates, his experience and combat effectiveness are no worse than Katakuri. Although Daipeng is also powerful, wait and see, he will definitely lose this time. Come on, place a bet. After all, we are all our own people. I bet on Daipeng to win, so let's bet 3 million Baileys. Rengar said with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, Sphinx clapped his hands excitedly and said, I believe in Gangplank. I bet on that bastard Daipeng to lose. I bet on 5 million Baileys. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone laughed again. After all, Sphinx and Daipeng have disliked each other many times. There have been many such bets. As long as Daipeng is here, she will also be stable. It is safe to bet that the Sphinx loses. It can be seen that everyone does not care about winning or losing at this level, it is just fun. Orgrim waved his hand and said, as a captain, why can you support your subordinates? I bet that Daipeng will lose, so I bet 5 million, gee ha 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 ha. Hey, don't you want to support your subordinates? We should bet on Daipeng to win, right? Beckman joked with a smile. What do you know? I am training her, motivating her, thinking in reverse, do you understand? Orgrim said unceremoniously. I think the eldest brother just wants to cheat money. When Daipeng comes back, I will tell her all these things. Neiman said with a smile. After chatting for a while, everyone was placing bets. Orgrim asked Gangplank beside him, where has that guy Mihawk gone recently? Do you know, and what about Enero? Gangplank casually placed a bet, betting that Daipeng would lose, and then said with a smile, half a month ago, Mihawk defeated Charlotte Cracker in Totland, if it hadn't ended in the end. He almost killed the guy, and then he invited Katakuri to fight, but Katakuri didn't respond to him, so he seemed to feel that the war in the New World was not interesting anymore, and he seemed to be heading towards the East China Sea. Running to the East China Sea again? What attracts him there? Orgrim said with some humor. He asked me to help him find out about Shanks. It seems that Shanks is in the East China Sea now. Maybe he is looking for him, Plank said with a smile. What about Enero? How is this guy? Orgrim asked again. As for Anilu, he is active on the front line of the war. Although his specific whereabouts are not known, judging from the past few times, he should be reuniting with Dai Peng soon, right? Gangplank smacked his lips and said. Enelu is different from the other cotters. Even a little girl like Sphinx can stand alone, but Enelu cannot, so although he is very good in this war, active, but essentially, he is just a gangster. He hangs out with the cotters who go out to fight, fights with them, and accumulates experience. Ha ha ha, with such a good opportunity, he should grow up very quickly, right? Orgrim smiled and said. After chatting for a while, Orgrim's eyes suddenly lit up and he saw the charming Stussy walking in from the door with a smile. Beckman saw Stussy. When he did, an inexplicable look flashed in his eyes, and then he quickly put a sincere smile on his face and said, "Hey, sister-in-law is here, sit down quickly, sit down quickly." The rest of the people also followed suit, shouting sister-in-law one after another, which made Stussy very happy. Seeing this, Orgrim had a smile on his lips, but he didn't stop anything. It was obvious that this is not the first time. That's right, although everyone knows in their hearts that Stussy is not one of our own, he is a 25-year-old boy. But the appearance still needs to be done enough. Beckman even feels that this kind of behavior can effectively confuse Stussy and make her feel that everyone accepts her from the bottom of their hearts. In this way, it will be much easier to use her to pass some wrong information to the world government in the future. At least Stussy will not be so suspicious of the authenticity of the information. Stussy walked in with a smile and greeted everyone one by one. She was in a very good mood. Since establishing a driving school training relationship with Orgrim, she can obviously feel that her influence in the Warhammer pirates has become greater. Many cotters, like Rengar, are no longer as polite as before, and even feel a little superior when facing themselves. On the contrary, he became much more friendly, as if he regarded her as one of the Warhammer pirates. This makes Stussy very happy, because this situation is very convenient for him to start his work. For example, this time, the conflict between the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates was initially taken very seriously by the world government. There was a high probability that they would gradually develop into a full-scale war, and they were even prepared to ask the Navy to respond. But after driving with Orgrim several times, Stussy got his thoughts out of Orgrim and determined that this war was a controllable war. Orgrim, there is no intention to fight a full-scale war. So Stussy immediately reported the matter to the world government. Although he was not sure about Charlotte Lingling's situation, as things developed, it was indeed the information reported by Stussy. As that goes on, the world government is relieved, and Stussy gets another wave of credit. After taking advantage of this kind of sweetness, Stussy became addicted. She went to Orgrim's room every 2 days. She couldn't tell whether it was for her own pleasure or for the pleasure of the world government. Even occasionally, Stussy's position would waver in her heart. She felt that maybe if she joined Orgrim's Warhammer pirates and dated him sincerely, you should have a very happy life, right? At least it would be much happier than the current intrigue. However, he has already fallen into a quagmire, and Orgrim is a cruel and ruthless person. If he confesses something to him now, can he really accept himself? Stussy thought it was impossible. With Orgrim's ruthlessness, even if he was very charming and deeply loved by him, he would not show mercy when it was time to kill someone. It was impossible for Stussy to bet his life with Orgrim on this kind of matter, betting that he could accept her. What's more, this is just some unrealistic fantasy that happens occasionally when the pressure is too much. He walked to Orgrim's side with a smile. Gangplank gave up his position with a wink. Stussy sat down naturally and reached out to hold Orgrim's arm. "Happy Street is all busy today?" Orgrim asked with a smile. His tone was slightly gentle, Stussy's eyes stagnated slightly, and she suppressed the unrealistic thoughts in her heart. Then she said with a smile, "Anyway, it's okay. It's nothing big, I still want to see you soon." When she said this, she was like a little girl in love, her eyes looking at Orgrim's pupils with longing and admiration. Orgrim couldn't help but smile. If he didn't know Stussy's true identity, he might have been deceived by her. It has to be said that women are all good at acting. The more beautiful a woman is, the more likely she is to deceive her people. Orgrim lovingly stretched out his hand and scratched Stussy's nose, and said with a smile, "You can tell something is wrong just by looking at you." "What happened?" Stussy rolled his eyes when he heard this, but then he didn't show off anymore. He smiled and took out a letter from his handbag and said, "You may not believe it when I tell you. Kaido from the Beast Pirates found our happy street in the Dark World and asked me to deliver it to you. A thank you letter. Queen Stussy of Happy Street has a close relationship with the boss of the Warhammer Pirates of Avalon, Kazgarot Orgrim. It's not a secret, it can even be said that everyone in the sea knows it. After all, Stussy lives directly in Avalon, and even spends the night at Orgrim's place almost every now and then. If you say there is no problem here, don't you think everyone is a fool?" Kaido naturally knew these things, so he entrusted Happy Street to deliver the letter for him. When Stussy received this letter, she was a little confused. Judging from her understanding of the Warhammer Pirates, there is no doubt that the Warhammer Pirates have no connection with Kaido at all. "This guy, why do you suddenly need to send a thank you note? Who do you want to thank?" Orgrim took the letter from Stussy's hand, and looked at the words "wishful brother" Orgrim's words on it. His expression was a little confused. "Kaido. Send me a thank you note? Did this guy take the wrong medicine? Did you drink too much?" Without any hesitation, Orgrim tore open the envelope. "My brother Orgrim, we see each other as if we have met each other. We have not seen each other for many years since we parted ways in the Chambord Islands. Brother, you misses him very much." Looking at the content above, Orgrim was shocked. "Damn it, do I know you very well? When did he become your good brother? Still see each other like each other? Your Kaido culture seems to be very good, right? Could it be that you are still an intellectual? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates." Author, Zippo. Chapter 294. Now in the New World, war has begun. My good brother is forging ahead, and my foolish brother is very relieved. My brothers share the business of arms. Due to the danger of war, we are prospering. My good brother has shamelessly taken advantage of the opportunities created by my good brother. I am terrified and grateful in my heart. Feelings should not be expressed in writing. Brother admires his virtuous brother for his unparalleled bravery and unparalleled heroism, and wishes he could have a good time while drinking. This is the pain in the heart of the foolish brother. My original intention was to come to my door in person to pay my respects and meet with my virtuous brother. However, my foolish brother was not clear about his affairs and had constant family affairs, which were deeply involved and delayed until now. After learning from the painful experience, Brother Yu suddenly realized that since he couldn't come in person, why not invite him sincerely? Therefore, I wrote a letter asking my dear brother to come and see you in the land of peace. Brother, you should sweep the couch and prepare it, hold a big banquet, and celebrate for 7 days. You have seen my sincerity. I hope my dear brother can see me sincerely and be invited to meet you. Handwritten by foolish brother Kaido. Orgrim opened the letter with a very surprised expression, and then fell deeply into thought. Even at this time, he felt a little ashamed. The world said that Kaido was reckless and vulgar, and he thought so before. He also felt that Kaido was reckless and vulgar. He is almost the same as himself, and even looks down on Kaido a little, thinking that he is smarter. Now look at it, just because of the cultural level of this letter, Kaido would hang himself up and beat him. If it were him. If Kaido writes a letter, the most it can say is, "Kaido, I admire you very much, but I have a lot of problems and I can't get through it, so I plan to invite you to Avalon," or something like that. How can it be as elegant as what Kaido wrote? Is it supposed to be a letter written by you, Kaido? This overwhelming sincerity makes it hard for me to refuse. Orgrim, Beckman looked at Orgrim's thoughtful expression and couldn't help but let out a sigh. Only then did Orgrim come back to his senses, looked at Beckman and said, "What's wrong? What did Kaido write to you? Why are you silent? Could it be that he declared war on you?" "Didn't my sister-in-law say this is a thank you letter?" Beckman asked curiously. Sphinx shouted, "I have long heard that Kaido has a close relationship with that dead old woman. When the two of them were under rocks, there was some confusion. I mean, Boss Shiji was on guard against the two of them joining forces before. If it depends on the situation now, it's not impossible for that bastard Kaido to come in and threaten us first. But don't worry, Mr. Hammer, I'm Sphinx. Here, I can't find the beast pirates that I'm trying to protect, so I shoot him in the head." Orgrim looked at the Sphinx with a smile. Although this little guy was always making noises and being extremely irritable, he would shoot someone's head off at every turn. "But I have to say that she is indeed very clever. Who wouldn't like Grimm's love for being fearless and willing to attack the first subordinate?" But Orgrim still waved his hand and said, "Kaido didn't threaten me, it's just that it's this letter, it's beyond my imagination, it just makes me a little autistic." With that said, Orgrim handed the letter in his hand to Beckman. Beckman took it with some curiosity and opened it. His expression became more and more surprised, and then he also fell into deep thought. Waiting for this letter after circulating it among the cotters, Sphinx said with a surprised look on his face, "Is this a letter that anyone in our pirate industry can write?" Rengar also looked confused and said, "Hasn't Kaido's image always been that of a reckless man? Now it seems that Kaido is actually a rough but fine person." Beckman also murmured with some emotion. Although Stussy knew it was a thank you letter, she didn't know the content, and she didn't dare to open it and read it casually. Only then did she really see the content of the letter. "The image of Kaido in my mind has greatly changed." But soon, Stussy became nervous again. It could be seen that Kaido praised Orgrim a lot in the letter, as if he admired him very much. Thinking back to the rumors in the past, it was said that Kaido would drink for 3 days and cry bitterly every time he saw news about Orgrim in the newspaper. I used to think of it as a joke, but now, it seems that it is not impossible. Otherwise, they are all big guys, and Kaido and Orgrim have nothing to do with each other. What does it mean to suddenly write such a sincere thank you letter that is obviously thoughtful and sincere? Could it be that Kaido plans to form an alliance with Orgrim? As a result, the structure of the new world will inevitably change. If Kaido and Orgrim join forces, not even Whitebeard can cover it, right? The world government will be threatened even more, and even the two of them can rule the entire new world, to expand into the world. For a moment, Stussy even recalled the two influential figures on the sea many years ago. Golden Lion Shiki, and Pirate King Roger. If the two of them had really joined forces back then, the world today would have been different. Not only Stussy thought of this, Beckman also frowned slightly and said, looking at what Kaido means, it seems that he wants to win over us. Doesn't that guy want to form an alliance with you? Ogrim touched his chin and said softly, I can't rule out this possibility. After all, I am so powerful and domineering, and everyone loves me. Neiman didn't give Orgrim a chance to continue bragging about himself. He directly interrupted Orgrim and asked, brother, let's not talk about alliances. What do you think of this invitation? I want to go and make an alliance with him country. Orgrim was silent for a while after hearing this, but did not speak directly. The Sphinx shouted, why are you going to Wano country? That place is Kaido's lair. Don't look at the sincerity of what he wrote in his letter, but don't forget that we are all pirates. We have nothing to do. Bottom line, who knows if he has set up some big trap, just waiting for Master Hammer to step into it. Rengar also said quickly, yes, what if it is a trap? Master Hammer, how can a rich man go to such a dangerous place casually? Kaido wants to join forces with Master Hammer? He doesn't care whether he is worthy or not. How dare he call himself Master Hammer's brother? Rengar makes me mad. Rengar said as soon as he finished speaking. All the cotters looked at him in surprise. Even Orgrim had an expression that was both gratifying and heartbreaking. Only this guy, Galdi Hots, followed Rengar and shouted, angrily scolding Kaido as unworthy and so on. Gangplank looked at Rengar with a complex expression, and finally just said, Rengar, you are really so loyal. What the hell is this rich man? How many times has Orgrim put himself in danger? Merely Kaido? This is a bit heartbreaking. At least in the eyes of many people, among the four, Kaido is still slightly more powerful than Orgrim. Even if we don't talk about his strength, just based on his age and time in the industry, Kaido can be regarded as Orgrim's brother. What's more, he also calls himself foolish brother very humbly, which is already very respectable. Okay. Does Kaido have to call himself filial son Kaido Gongwen to be sincere? You, Rengar, deserve to be the hammer's licking dog. I can lick this, I admire you. Rengar thought that Gangplank was praising him, so he straightened his expression and said with a proud look, of course I am loyal to Lord Hammer. Okay, stop arguing. Orgrim quickly waved his hand. Then, he looked at Beckman. Beckman nodded in agreement and said softly, if you think about it, we do still owe Kaido a favor. On the Shampoo Islands, in any case, Kaido did help Orgrim and the others. Otherwise, Orgrim and the others might have been killed long ago, or they might have gone to Imperial to enjoy the sea in advance. The thief's forced retirement life. This favor was never repaid, and after entering the New World, Orgrim never saw Kaido again. Putting this aside, he did not have any special conflicts with Kaido in the New World. The two had some entanglements in the arms business, but soon, the two sides divided the market in a tacit understanding, and then at present, there is more cooperation than competition. The two of them are hot and cold, directly monopolizing most of the shares, and the pricing power is in their hands. They are very happy. In this way, if Kaido sincerely invites him to visit Wano country, Orgrim should have no reason to refuse. I'm just a little worried. Isn't this bastard going to have a hangman banquet and try to kill me, just on the surface but behind his back? After all, Kaido has evil intentions, and Orgrim also knows it. Didn't he see that Kojiki Oden was played to death like this? Not to mention the impersonal nature, since Kaido invited me so generously, if I don't go, wouldn't it mean that I'm afraid of him? Orgrim suddenly said. Master Chui, no words sir, if you write a letter inviting Kaido to come, do you think he would dare to come? This is not a question of whether you are afraid or not, Sphinx suddenly spoke. As she spoke, she stopped herself because everyone was looking at her strangely. If Lord Hammer invited Kaido, he would probably come, right? Rengar said suddenly. After all, everyone knows how reckless Kaido is. One man can challenge the Whitebeard pirates alone, and the other can challenge the Navy headquarters. This is not something he has never done before. Orgrim smiled at the Sphinx, then turned to look at Stussy, reached out to touch her silky hair, and asked Stussy, do you think I should go? Damn it, if you don't go, you won't have all the worries behind this. If you go, who knows what you and Kaido can do? Stussy thought so in her heart, and opened her mouth to dissuade Orgrim. But when she saw Orgrim's dark and deep pupils, her heart suddenly froze. Why did Orgrim ask me this question? The thoughts in his heart were flashing like lightning. Stussy said with a smile on his face, of course, this kind of thing is entirely up to you, Mr. Hammer. That's right, Stussy, don't be too arrogant. Although the atmosphere seems to be very good now, you have to remember that Orgrim is a ruthless guy, and he is not a member of the Warhammer Pirates. Member, how can you express your opinion on this matter? The corner of Orgrim's mouth curled up slightly, he nodded with satisfaction, and said very good, since that guy Kaido sincerely invites me, I'll just go there and see what Wano country is like. Longton and Tiger's Den, gee ha 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 ha. Master Chui, let me go with you, Rengar said quickly. Now that Lord Hammer has made his decision, Rengar will never raise any objections. It's just that Wano country is so dangerous and is Kaido's lair. No matter what he says, he will go. Guard Hammer. But Orgrim waved his hand and said no, you all do your own thing. Don't forget, Avalon, is still developing at a high speed, fighting a low-level war with the Big Mom pirates. It's not over yet, why are you running around? After finishing speaking, Orgrim turned to look at Stussy and said, Stussy, why don't you go with me? Gee ha 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 ha, don't worry, even if there is any danger, I will definitely protect you. Although Orgrim felt that Kaido had no ill intentions towards him, after all, there was no conflict between the two. But that is Kaido's lair after all, and there are still dangers there. Bringing his own cotters there, not to mention that they all have serious business, might become a drag on the enemy by then. With Orgrim's character, it is impossible to leave them alone. But it's different with Stussy. If there's any problem, Stussy, come to the rear. After all, Stussy is not one of Orgrim's own, he is still a young boy. Orgrim does such unethical things, but there is no psychological pressure at all. Stussy looked at Orgrim's sincere smile, and felt a lot of reluctance in her heart. I have done a great job in getting promoted and making a fortune in Avalon. Do I have to go to Wano country with you to try my luck? But she can't refuse Orgrim either. Therefore, holding back the grief in his heart, Stussy couldn't help but put on a professional fake smile on his face, nodded and said, Master Zui, you have said so, of course I am very happy, we have not traveled together yet, just take it as it is, vacation is ready. Gee ha 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 ha, you're right, don't worry, I'm here, what are you afraid of? Orgrim laughed. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 295. After Orgrim decided to go, Beckman and others did not object. But after thinking about it for a while, Beckman asked, if you go and meet Kaido, what will you do if he really talks to you about forming an alliance? Orgrim looked at his cotters. They asked, do you have any ideas? The Sphinx shouted, if we really form an alliance, will a full-scale war begin soon? Let's hang that dead old woman with our left hand and our right foot. It's exciting to think about kicking the old man with a white beard, so why not form an alliance? Neiman said, brother, if we really form an alliance, all our development plans will be overturned. Plank said, and how to form this alliance? Who is in charge and who is in second place? Of course, Mr. Hammer is in charge and Kaido is in charge. Rengar said without hesitation. Orgrim also grinned and said, I have no intention of bowing to anyone again. Maybe we can share the world, Beckman also smiled and said. In fact, why the big pirates rarely form alliances is because they are very proud. Once they form an alliance, who will be the leader of the alliance? Maybe he will fight for this position first. Well, instead of doing this, it would be better not to form an alliance. Even if Kaido is really willing to share the world with Master Chui, is Master Chui willing? Gangplank said again. As soon as Gangplank finished speaking, everyone looked at Orgrim. Orgrim raised his chin slightly and said with some arrogance, if I really join forces with Kaido, at most when conquering the world, we are on equal footing. When we are waiting to conquer the world, there will inevitably be a fight between dragons and tigers. Talking about sharing the world is nothing more than lying to ourselves. How can people like them, who have reached this point, share the world with others? Even if Kaido admires him, it should be impossible. In the same way, the same goes for Orgrim. In this case, it seems that the alliance is not very beneficial to us, Beckman pondered for a moment and said. Now, Orgrim and others don't know whether Kaido is ready. But there is no doubt that the Warhammer pirates are not ready. Even if they really form an alliance with Kaido now, sweeping the world, even the Warhammer pirates can't eat it. By then, the more the beast pirates eat in the process, the stronger he will be, and the more advantageous he will be in the future fight between dragons and tigers. On the contrary, it would be much better if Orgrim farmed quietly. However, it would not be good for us to refuse directly. If Kaido really wants to join forces with us, Orgrim should not refuse him directly. I think the two of us can use the reason of unable to truly trust each other to build it is a friendly and cooperative relationship. We will discuss the alliance when we are ready. Then we will be able to move forward and retreat freely. If the time is right, then we will form an alliance. If it is not suitable, just pretend it is not. We will not be considered as betrayers. After thinking for a while, Beckman said again. Gee ha 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 ha, that makes sense. Orgrim laughed. If Kaido really proposed an alliance, Orgrim wouldn't have agreed to it as soon as he said it. After all, Avalon's plan has been in the works for so long. Can it be changed at will? It is very troublesome to change this. It is an adjustment of the general direction. It is hard to explain how complicated it is. In short, it is very troublesome. Secondly, even if Kaido proposes an alliance, Ogurmi really can't trust him. The two sides have never had much contact. How can they really reach trust and form an alliance? So Beckman's proposal is very good. The road must be walked step by step. Let's make a treaty of friendly cooperation first. Come out and don't cause trouble to each other. If you have any problems, you can help. Only by slowly building this trust can we lay a solid foundation for possible alliances in the future. As for whether to form an alliance in the future, not only it depends on Orgrim and Kaido's thoughts. These are all things for later. After discussing with everyone, Orgrim finally set the tone for this trip to Wano. If Kaido really didn't set up any traps to harm Orgrim, so Orgrim planned to build a pretty good relationship with Kaido. But even though he decided to go, Orgrim still planned to first it was to say hello to Kaido. As for how to say hello, of course it was to reply to the letter. After that, Orgrim stayed in the house for 3 days, but he still couldn't write a letter as elegant as Kaido's. It was even a little bit like a monkey. As for the crown, the more he wrote, the funnier he became. Angry, Orgrim finally tore up the written letter and reluctantly admitted that he was not as educated as Kaido. He was mentally disturbed by Kaido. The whipping made Orgrim feel very unhappy. Therefore, in his reply to Kaido, there was only one line. Understood, I will go to Wano country to meet you now and have a drink and talk. Then, Orgrim asked Stussy to send a letter to Kaido as quickly as possible. Then Orgrim packed his luggage and prepared to take Stussy to the country of Wano. As for Stussy, in the past 3 days, has also been taking care of his own affairs, and reported to the world government the news that Orgrim and Kaido were going to meet, and that they did not rule out the possibility of an alliance between the two parties. The world government, everyone over there was shocked. How long did it last? No, it should be said that it almost never stopped. After Orgrim made trouble in O'Hara, he returned to Avalon not long before Warhammer broke out in the New World. The continuous war between the pirates and the Big Mom pirates. As a result, the war is not over yet. Orgrim is going to Wano to meet Kaido in the blink of an eye. There is even a possibility of an alliance between the two parties. What the hell? But it's a major event that can change the world's structure. Please Orgrim, please take a rest. Okay. In the Holy Land, Marijoya, the headquarters building of the world government. On the top floor, in the offices of the 5 Old Stars. Marshal Cyborg and General Warring States are in this office at this time, and the 5 Old Stars are also there. Their expressions are very serious, and they seem to be discussing something important. This is the latest information given by the CP agency. You should take a look at it first, Wu Laoxing said. The Warring States General and Cyborg Marshal took the two pieces of information that were handed over to them, and then looked at them seriously. Then, their expressions changed. They were gloomy at first, then pensive, and finally returned to calmness. This information, the Warring States General spoke first. Before he finished speaking, the bald 5 old stars waved their hands and said, "No doubt, the information is absolutely true. It came from people around Orgrim." The Warring States General nodded when he heard this. Sure enough, the world government is in Austria. Grimm has already placed spies around him, and sometimes he has to admit that those bastards in the CP agency are far better than their navy in the matter of intelligence. At the same time, the Warring States General also made up his mind: how can the flowers in the greenhouse grow? The Rosandi incident, it has to be arranged. Marshal Cyborg was silent for a while and then said, "It's really strange. As far as I know, the Beasts pirates and the Warhammer pirates have almost no involvement. If I have to say it, there are only 2 points. One is Kaido. He appeared once on the Chambord Islands, and he helped Orgrim. One was that the two of them cooperated tacitly in the arms business in the Dark World, but this was all due to the situation, and there was no relationship between the two parties. How could it suddenly become like this despite our friendship? In the original story, Kaido and Charlotte Lingling were able to join forces, partly because they were both familiar with each other. After all, they had been partners on the same boat. There is a certain basis for alliance. On the other hand, it's because they have reached a bottleneck. The Beasts pirates and the Big Mom pirates have grown very large and mature through so many years of development, and can move to the next step. The last aspect is because the pattern of the times at that time has undergone major changes. For example, the Shishibukai system was abolished, the Navy headquarters entered the New World, and Whitebeard died. After combining with each other, they saw enough benefits from joining forces, so they joined forces. But looking at it now, firstly, Kaido and Orgrim have no real friendship at all. In theory, they are not even familiar with each other, so it should be impossible to build a trusting relationship. This alliance is a hammer. Second, Kaido's Beasts pirates are developing well, but they are not ready to respond to changes or even take the initiative to initiate changes. This is especially true for the Warhammer pirates. At this time, both of them should be farming and rapidly developing their strength. What kind of alliance should they make? Third, although the current era is chaotic, real changes have not occurred. On the pirate side, Whitebeard is suppressing it. On the world government side, the Revolutionary Army has not involved them much energy. Although the Navy headquarters, there are many talents, but they have not entered the New World to bring greater threats. The King's Shishibukai is just an empty shell now, with nothing to say. So although there is chaos, the situation is relatively stable. In this case, why do the two of them form an alliance? This should be seen as a sign. General Warring States suddenly spoke softly. Wu Laoxing also looked at Warring States and said, "Let's talk about it." According to this information, there is only the possibility of an alliance between the two parties, and Orgrim is not really going to form an alliance with Kaido. It can be seen that the Warhammer pirates just want to build a good alliance with Kaido. In terms of Orgrim's character, he is not a person who can be easily shaken. Therefore, even if Kaido is really sincere about forming an alliance with him this time, I am afraid Orgrim will not. At most, the two parties will give in and build a friendly and cooperative relationship, and this relationship can be regarded as the foundation needed for the possible alliance between the Warhammer pirates and the Beast pirates in the future, the Warring States General analyzed. The 5 old stars and others also nodded, and they thought it was unlikely that Orgrim and Kaido would suddenly form an alliance. But if we build a sign and prepare for the future, it is quite possible. So how should we respond? Ruin their meeting? Wu Laoxing asked again. When Warring States heard this, he felt a pain in his heart. It's easy to say that it ruined the meeting between the two of them, but how difficult is it to do? And this pot will most likely have to be executed by our navy. Right? Neither Kaido nor Orgrim are easy to mess with. If you want to mess with them, you have to be a general, right? And it has been proven before that a general cannot defeat Orgrim at all. Grim, not to mention Kaido. So even if we want to take action, we must dispatch at least 2 admiral-level combat capabilities. But now, how can the Navy have so much spare power? If we want to go, either he goes with Garp or the Marshal during the Warring States period. Even if he goes there, he may not be able to accomplish anything, especially in Wano country, which is an easy to defend and difficult to attack place. If he wants to lead a large fleet there are many people. It can't be done. So after weighing the feasibility of this, Warring States shook his head violently and said, unfortunately, although it is a bit shameful to say it, we are unable to prevent their meeting at all. Wu Laoxing's expression suddenly changed, and he wanted to scold Warring States for something, but in the end he still couldn't speak. Yes, Sengoku's words sounded a bit harsh, as if the world government had lost control there. But isn't that what it is? Do they really have any control over it? They lost control of the New World many years ago. If they could effectively control it, would they have allowed the situation to develop into the way it is now? Humph, we can't do nothing. The Navy must make corresponding preparations. Also, if our Navy can't accomplish these things in the New World, don't always mess with the plans of the King Shichibukai, the 5 old stars scolded. Although the Warring States general looked a little helpless, he finally nodded and agreed. There is no doubt that this answer made the 5 old stars very dissatisfied, and the 5 old stars were also knocking their navy. The affairs of the King's Kibutai cannot be messed up for the time being. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 296. Wano Country and Nagashima. Ever since Kaido wrote a letter to Orgrim that day. This guy looks like he's out of his mind all day long, often talking to himself. From time to time, he would grab his little brother and ask if Orgrim had answered him. But after asking many times, I still didn't get the results I wanted. So Kaido was not in a happy mood during this period. Could it be that Orgrim didn't receive his letter at all? Or maybe it means that the war with Lingling took away his energy and he didn't have time to reply to me. It's impossible that he doesn't want to meet me at all, right? There is no reason. There is no enmity or grudge between us. Does he even owe me a favor? And even out of mutual respect among the great pirates, Orgrim should give me a result, right? Whether to come or not is one thing, but whether to respond or not is another matter entirely. On this day, Kaido, who was in an irritable mood, was sitting in his room drinking wine. He was even thinking about whether he should kill Kojiki Oden now to vent his anger. If you calculate the timing, it should be almost there, right? That guy's reputation has been ruined a long time ago. If we attack him now, it won't cause any waves in Wano country. The hidden resistance forces have also been thoroughly investigated. If these things are done early, even if Orgrim doesn't come to see me, I can still find time to see him. Thinking of this, Kaido felt a little hot in his heart. At this moment, a young man rushed in hurriedly with a letter in his hand. Kaido was in a bad mood. Looking at this guy's appearance, he felt angry in his heart. He was about to deal with him, but he found a letter in his hand. Suddenly, Kaido's expression came alive. He felt that the sun was just right and the weather was bright. The gloom in his heart was swept away. Is it Orgrim's reply to me? Kaido asked excitedly. The younger brother knew that boss Kaido had been waiting for this news recently, so he didn't dare to delay anything, so he quickly said, "Yes, Boss Kaido, it's that Kazguro's, Orgrim's reply to you." Kaido took the letter excitedly and looked at the envelope carefully. Then he looked a little confused, because there was nothing written on the envelope. It was not as virtuous as he imagined. Brother Kaido personally opens the letter. Although Kaido was confused, he didn't dwell on anything. He fantasized about what Orgrim would say to him, and opened the letter in a very happy mood. Then, he took out the letter. Was a thin piece of paper. When he looked up, Kaido was stunned again. "Understood, I will go to Wano country to meet you now and have a drink and talk." It's not as sincere as Kaido imagined, nor is it lengthy as Kaido imagined, nor is it decorated with gorgeous rhetoric. It's just such an abrupt, simple sentence. This makes Kaido feel warm. It feels like a cold butt. "I sincerely wrote you a sincere and heartfelt thank you letter, but you just replied to me with this thing? That's it?" Kaido didn't immediately doubt Ogre. Mew, but he suddenly raised his head and looked at the little brother. This ferocious aura almost scared the little brother to the point of peeing. Is this letter written by Orgrim himself? Are there any mistakes? Isn't someone causing trouble for me? Kaido asked in a deep voice. The younger brother responded tremblingly, "Boss Kaido, we don't know whether this handwriting was handwritten or not, but it definitely came from the hand of Ms. Stussy from Happy Street. There haven't been any accidents. It must have been written by Orgrim, right?" Kaido frowned again and looked down again. In this case, it should be written by Orgrim, but this. After thinking about it, Kaido studied the sentence again. Soon, his expression was overjoyed, as if he had discovered something. Yes, the most important thing in this letter is not about drinking and talking or meeting me, but the two words now. This short sentence reveals a lot. Think about it. What is Brother Orgrim going through now? The war with Lingling, then the Warhammer pirates should be running closely and cannot do without him as the captain at all times. But after he received my letter, he did not hesitate to use now these two words express his urgency and expectation. He would rather put down those important things and ignore the war, but come to see me as soon as possible. Isn't this the greatest sincerity? Poor me, Kaido, I couldn't understand the intention of this at the first time. Instead, I was nitpicking and felt dissatisfied. It's really my fault. Kaido looked at the letter in his hand. The more he read, the more he felt that Orgrim was very sincere. This letter was so well written. How did he know that Orgrim was just a salty fish in Avalon? As for the war, they have no time to bet on the outcome. What's there to say? Alas, Brother Orgrim has seen clearly. We pirates just say what we say. Why do we need to be so formal? It seems to highlight sincerity, but it is completely inconsistent with your own character. How can this be called true sincerity? But Orgrim made no secret of it to me, and showed his pirate style openly and openly. His short words were both sincere and courageous. Compared with him, I seemed petty, ashamed. Kaido murmured again. At this moment, he no longer had any dissatisfaction with this simple sentence, and even thought it was great. After thinking about it, Kaido thought about it. This is odd. It was the first time that Reem wrote to himself. Judging from the sincerity, it should be his own handwritten letter. Then he should pay more attention to it and commemorate the budding friendship between the two. Thinking of this, Kaido trembled at that the little brother said, "You did a good job, I am very happy. Now I leave you to do something. Go to the flower capital for me and invite the best framer to come and ask him to give me this letter. The letter of friendship that represents the brotherhood between Orgrim and me is framed, and I want to hang it in this hall." The younger brother was completely confused when he heard Kaido's words. What's the matter? But he didn't dare to disobey Kaido. He nodded quickly and said, "Yes, Boss Kaido, I will go and deal with this matter right away." Done. After this little brother left, Kaido was holding the letter in one hand and drinking wine in the other. He was very happy and happy. Brother Orgrim is coming, Kaido murmured happily. Then, he was stunned for a moment. Although the letter arrived first, if Orgrim was so looking forward to it, his speed should not be too slow. Maybe he will soon arrive in Wano country now. Thinking of this, Kaido quickly shouted twice and called a few younger brothers to come in. Before the younger brothers could speak, Kaido ordered loudly, "Go and tell that guy Orokai to send me all the best chefs in Wano to a Nagashima before sunset tomorrow. 1 minute late. I'll chop off his head and drink some wine. Also, send me all the precious ingredients, fine wine, etc. from Wano country to a Nagashima. I'll also pick out the best ones from the singers, dancers, etc. I want him to do it for me quickly. My good brother Orgrim is coming. Of course I will receive him with the highest standards of treatment. Do you understand? Although Black Carbon Orokai is a general of Wano country, he is nominally Wano's general, the supreme ruler of the country. But in front of the monster Kaido, he is nothing. He can only be regarded as a tool used by Kaido to rule Wano. Therefore, after receiving Kaido's order, Black Carbon Orokai panicked and quickly issued orders to do as Kaido said. If he was 1 minute late, he would have everyone die with him. I saw all kinds of food, wine, top chefs, singers, and dancers from the entire Wano country, all heading towards a Nagashima. Kaido, on the other hand, also asked people to fully prepare the banquet, waiting for Orgrim to come and meet him to have a drink and talk. As a result, after waiting for 5 days, Orgrim still didn't come. Sitting alone in the main hall, Kaido held a wine bottle in one hand, frowning and drinking while waiting for news from Orgrim. Soon, a boy ran in, and after Kaido saw him, he immediately asked, "Did you see any boats coming over to the Koi Falls?" "Boss Kaido, no," the younger brother responded quickly. Kaido frowned again when he heard this, stretched out his hand to touch his chin and said, "Did brother Orgrim encounter any trouble?" "Yes, the climate in the New World is so weird. He arrived a few days late, it makes sense, but I was too impatient." Kaido only thought that Orgrim had encountered some trouble. In fact, in the New World at this time, Orgrim had just left the port of Dressrosa. Yes, although he wrote to Kaido the letter was "I'll go now," but it was just a casual note. There was nothing profound at all. I didn't expect Kaido to look forward to him so much. It's finally a real vacation. Ogre took Stacy and they headed towards the country of Wano in a hurry, and they had a lot of fun on the way. "Didn't you just come out of Dressrosa?" The current Dressrosa is still ruled by the Lika royal family. Although the entire country is enthusiastic, it can still see the economic decline. Poverty is very common. Later, when Doflamingo became king, although Rosa is very dark, its economy is developing rapidly and it is extremely wealthy. Who is better and worse here is a matter of opinion. "Mr. Hammer, it's time for us to go to Wano country too, right?" Stussy sat on the boat and asked Orgrim with a smile. Orgrim stretched and said, "Okay, I guess that letter should be sent to Kaido. We are now, the past was just right." At the same time, Doflamingo also looked at the information in his hand with some surprise. "Master Hammer is going to meet Kaido? This is a rare thing," Doflamingo whispered softly. But soon, his eyes became a little fiery. He hugged Orgrim's thigh before, and now his career is going smoothly. But this doesn't mean that Doflamingo doesn't want to develop deeper cooperative relationships with others. It's just because he has chosen Orgrim first, so before doing these things, he must consider Orgrim's ideas. Previously, although Kaido could not be called an enemy of Orgrim, it was still reasonable to be an opponent. If Doflamingo wants to cooperate with Kaido, he has to see Orgrim's mood first. But now, the relationship between Orgrim and Kaido seems to be developing in a friendly direction, so there is no need to worry too much about so many flamingos. Doflamingo became a little excited when he thought about the artificial devil fruit thing that Caesar had mentioned before. After thinking about it, Doflamingo said without hesitation. Turn around, let's go to Wano country, I will contact Lord Hammer right away. Big guys, please give me a monthly ticket. It has exceeded 800 and is almost over 1,000. I am so excited. I also need flowers. Please help me. I have not updated this book even once since I opened it. Don't you think it's full of sincerity? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 297. Approaching the waters of Wano country, there was an ordinary pirate ship. Orgrim was sitting on the sun lounger on the deck basking in the sun, and next to him sat Doflamingo, the young master. Queen Stussy is not here, maybe because she is afraid of being in the sun for too long, which is bad for her skin. Anyway, she was resting in the cabin. Shaking a glass of juice in his hand, Orgrim looked very satisfied. Doflamingo also wore his own orange sunglasses, with his arms behind his head, looking very relaxed. It's really strange. Isn't your business booming? After all, we haven't seen each other for a while. Why did you suddenly come to see me? Orgrim took a sip of juice and asked with a smile. Doflamingo said very leisurely, although the business is very hot, I don't have anything particularly busy. Mr. Hammer, did you learn it? Leave the things that need to be handed over to your subordinates. We, the people, just have to grasp the general direction. This experience is actually quite useful, but the premise is that you have to be able to cover it. Orgrim can completely cover it with his strong strength and prestige, and with the help of Beckman, there is no need to worry about it pressure. As for Doflamingo, he has the golden thigh of Orgrim on his back. In the New World, most people want to give him face, so he can indeed cover it up. He paused for a moment. Finally, Doflamingo said with a smile, Fu, speaking of which, business is very prosperous this year, but it's because of the war in this new world, whether it's arms or my weapons, that you can't look down on. Regardless of the business on. The continuous wars in the New World have caused many people to be displaced. Doflamingo's population business is naturally booming. Not to mention, it has indeed sent a lot of technical talents to Avalon, which can be regarded as a mutual benefit. Gee ha 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 ha, you benefited, and so did I. This year is indeed a good year. Orgrim said with a smile. I haven't asked you, Master Chui, how long are you going to fight the war with the Big Mom pirates? If you give me the information in advance, I can make more preparations and find some enemies to take over. Doflamingo smiled again and said. This war is just like the wind. Standing on the wind, pigs can take off. But the problem is that once the wind stops, many people will be eaten if they are not prepared in advance. Big loss. For example, if the price of arms continues to rise, it is inevitable that some people will buy some arms and hoard them to speculate on the price. For this, Orgrim can be regarded as one of the beneficiaries, so he has never taken care of these things that disrupt the price market. But once the war stops, the price of arms will inevitably fall back to its original normal price. At this time, whoever has not finished the goods will be in trouble and lose all their money. Dofroind, as a big speculator, Brother Ming must pay more attention to this information. And what else is more accurate than communicating directly with Orgrim? War? Orgrim smiled, and then said softly, this is not something I can stop if I want. As long as today's war can be controlled, before the next big event, the next turning point, because of the various in a relationship of profit, neither I nor that dead old woman will give up casually. Doflamingo nodded, and he understood this. It was impossible to really ask Orgrim to give an accurate answer. Wouldn't that be nonsense? Can this kind of thing just stop? Before Doflamingo could speak, Orgrim smiled and continued, but don't worry, we are good friends. If there are any changes, I will definitely notify you as soon as possible. Flamengo also laughed, as long as he could have this answer. By the way, I heard that you just came out of Dressrosa with Queen Stussy? Doflamingo asked. Before Orgrim could speak, Doflamingo hesitated for a moment, but still whispered, Master Hammer, although I have no intention of intervening in your emotional affairs. There are some things I shouldn't say, but as a good friend, I think I still have to remind you. What? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and looked at Doflamingo in surprise. In his opinion, Doflamingo was undoubtedly a smooth guy, and with these words, he risked offending himself. The risk is there, it seems that he really regards him as a friend. Think about it. Doflamingo is a lonely guy. In this world, those who are stronger than him may not be able to regard him as a friend. With him he must be too proud to force himself. And those who are worse than him, with his pride, will definitely not bother to make friends. But Orgrim is a man who is better than him, but he has made a fortune in the grassroots, and he has never disliked him. He has never disliked him very early. He established some relationships and later became a good friend who made a fortune with him. Stussy, this woman, is not simple. Anyway, Mr. Hammer, please pay more attention to her. Doflamingo smiled and said. Doflamingo just thinks there is something wrong with Stussy. He has some connections with the world government and has heard some true and false news. But he can't tell. There is no evidence, so I can only mention it to Orgrim in a vague way, which is considered a distraction. Orgrim smiled evilly, nodded to Doflamingo and said, This is natural, I know it well. Foo, Mr. Zui, you just need to know it yourself. Doflamingo smiled reassuringly. Then he continued, How is Dressrosa? Orgrim thought about it for a moment, then smacked his lips and said, Just do it. I don't know if you know, Mr. Hammer, that 800 years ago, the royal family of Dressrosa was my Don Quixote family, Doflamingo said softly, with some emotion in his tone. Well, I know this well. Later, your Don Quixote family formed a world government and moved to Marijoya. The royal power of Dressrosa also fell to the Rica family. Orgrim nodded and said. Doflamingo opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he shook his head, smiled bitterly and did not speak. Seeing this, Orgrim didn't ask any more questions. He just drank the juice silently. After a long time, Doflamingo suddenly asked Master Hammer, What do you think you should do if you want to become the king of the 7 warlords? Do you want to be the king of the Shishibukai? Orgrim glanced at Doflamingo and said. Doflamingo smiled and said, Didn't I mention it to you earlier, but at that time, I was not qualified. Now, I am somewhat capable, right? For me, many things require the identity of King Shishibukai in order to truly perform them. I'm curious about this. With your ability and your connections with the world government, it shouldn't be very difficult to get the position of King Shishibukai, right? Orgrim asked back. Doflamingo shook his head and said, On the contrary, precisely because my identity is very complicated, it is extremely difficult to become the king of the Shishibukai. The world government is unwilling to cooperate with me. There were too many disputes, not to mention the navy. That's it. Not long ago, the world government seemed to be interested in inviting me to become the king of the Shishibukai. It was about arms, but I refused. Orgrim smacked his lips and said. Doflamingo smiled, but he was not too surprised. If he was as smart as Orgrim, he would not look down on the position of King Shishibukai. The problem is he's not as awesome as Orgrim. You can learn from Crocodile and that Moria. I think the level of the King's Shishibukai is not very good. The world government positions it very high, but there is an organization like the Navy that is holding it back. The King's Shishibukai, the gold content of it will probably not increase too much, Orgrim joked with a smile. Learn from them. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, Phew, Hammer Master, you want me to challenge Whitebeard or Big Mom, right? When I lose, maybe the Navy will come to visit me personally. Gee ha, it is a possibility. Orgrim laughed. Doflamingo shook his head helplessly, but did not continue to ask Orgrim any more questions. Think about it, how could a person of his level consider the king Shichibukai? About something? I asked the wrong person. It's better to go back and think about it yourself. By the way, didn't you just ask me how I found it? Doflamingo suddenly said again. Orgrim was stunned for a moment. He had almost forgotten this topic. I almost couldn't keep up with your jumping thinking. Orgrim complained. Phew, to be honest, I have been using it recently. Go to Avalon and have a nice chat with Mr. Hammer, Doflamingo said with a smile. How? Have you come up with any clever ideas to make money? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and asked. Well, as you know, I am a bit of an insider in the Navy. Not long ago, I got a piece of news that is not important, but I am very interested in. That is, it is said that the Navy's scientific force, based on the bloodline of Dr. Vegapunk, the factor theory, has cracked the secrets of some devil fruits, which involves a less mature technology called artificial devil fruit. After getting this news, I contacted the guy Caesar. Guess what? What's going on? Doflamingo asked enthusiastically. Does Caesar have this technology? Orgrim said with a shrug. Fura, yes, this technology was abandoned by Dr. Vegapunk, but Caesar seemed to be very interested, so he briefly took over the research for a period of time, but he did not continue it later, but in the process, he has indeed mastered this technology. In my opinion, this technology has great market prospects. Doflamingo's expression straightened slightly. Just say it. Orgrim waved his hand and said. I plan to cooperate with Kaido on this technology, Doflamingo said without hesitation. Orgrim touched his chin and then asked, is this your business? Didn't I tell you earlier that we have a cooperative relationship and I have no intention of doing so? If I interfere with you, don't care too much about my feelings. Even if you cooperate with that dead old woman, it is reasonable and reasonable. I won't say anything. Business is business, and friendship is friendship. Phew, having said that, Master Chui, you have such a good relationship with me, why should I say hello to you first? Doflamingo said with a smile. Orgrim also smiled, and then Doflamingo continued also, this Caesar is now the person you are protecting, Lord Hammer, and it is not convenient for me to cross him. Isn't it this level? So you're going to work with me? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and said. That's right, the artificial devil fruit technology can hardly work on the natural and superhuman types, focusing on the animal type. This seems to be very suitable for Kaido's guy. It can be seen that over the years, he has purchased them at high prices at sea. Various animal-type devil fruits seem to be trying to create an army of animal-type ability users. At this time, if there is such a technology, do you think Kaido's big business is willing to pay for it? Doflamingo raised his eyebrows and asked with an evil smile. Indeed, the technology of artificial devil fruits is trapped in the animal system, and most of the products produced are shoddy and inferior. After all, if this thing can create a natural system, no matter how bad it is, it will be worth a lot of money. Why can't the Navy spend hundreds or hundreds of billions to destroy it every year? Create a rubbish natural system army and sweep away all the pirates on the sea. It's completely no problem. The superhuman system is about the same. Orgrim doesn't know why it is technically stuck here, but since the theory of blood factor is an important program, it may have something to do with blood. Animals after all, there is blood, maybe this is the breakthrough point. You can't let Vegapunk come up with natural blood, right? Orgrim listened to this and was silent for a while. Yes, Kaido, this guy has a big business and made a lot of money from arms. I don't know where he hid it all. If I use this crude technology to help him fulfill his dream of being a zoo director, he should be very happy. You pay for your dreams, right? Sounds great, so that's why you're going to Wano with me? Orgrim smacked his lips and asked. Phew, that's right, let's count this one. I'd like to contact you by the way to express my feelings, Doflamingo joked with a smile. Did it turn out that I was just by the way? Orgrim glared angrily, and then the two of them laughed again. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 298. Orgrim has never been to Wano country. As soon as he entered the sea area, he was immediately discovered by Kaido's people. In fact, large pirate groups have very good control over their territorial waters. Watch Douglas Barrett, running around in Big Mom territory, getting discovered at the start. Why? It's because that dead old woman Charlotte Lingling seems to have a persecution delusion. She actually has surveillance sea slugs all over the waters of Totland. She can know about any trouble. Isn't this a disease? Although Kaido is not as cruel as Charlotte Lingling, he also has a strong control over the waters near Wano country, with a large number of patrol boats patrolling back and forth. The same is true in the Avalon Sea. Orgrim also has a large number of pirate fleets patrolling the sea area. Under the leadership of Kaido's brother, Orgrim also took a ride on the koi and followed the towering waterfall to the territory of Wano. Afterwards, he was guided into Kaido's base camp, a Nagashima. Ghost Island is an island that looks like a skull and is very huge. Kaido's place is heavily guarded, and many people with animal abilities can be seen. Not surprisingly, these are Kaido's younger brothers. Although the name of Ghost Island sounds a bit scary, in fact, the scenery is still very good, with clusters of cherry blossoms, small bridges, and flowing water, and the architectural style is also deeply loved by Orgrim. There are rumors that thousands of years ago, the birthplace of Wano country was the country of flowers. It is a large fleet of the Kingdom of Flowers, crossing the Western Sea and coming to the New World to obtain some elixir of immortality for the king. The last part of the people stayed in the New World and gradually formed the prototype of Wano country. Therefore, the culture and architecture of Wano country are very similar to Flower country. However, this kind of thing can no longer be investigated. The cultural circles of the Kingdom of Flowers agree with this statement, but the cultural circles of the Kingdom of Wano do not admit it at all. In addition, the country of Wano later began to seclusion, and no one mentioned these disturbing things anymore. As soon as they entered Ghost Island, Quinn, a fat guy, came up to him. At this time, Quinn's body shape is no different from Orgrim's impression. He is round and like a ball, but his face looks much younger, and his arms are normal and have not been transformed into one robotic arm. This guy seems to have the same body shape as him and a very smooth personality. He has no airs in front of Orgrim and puts himself in the right position. Boss Orgrim, you are finally here. My boss Kaido has been thinking about you these days and has been torturing us little brothers to death, Quinn said with a smile and followed Orgrim. Stussy held Orgrim's arm and followed Orgrim quietly. Her expression was very calm, but she was actually very guilty in her heart. Yes, this is Kaido's base camp. But while feeling guilty, Stussy was also very excited. This is Kaido's home base, and not everyone can come. If he can get some useful information here, wouldn't it be easy to get promoted and make a fortune? Doflamingo was also following Orgrim. He seemed to be much more relaxed here. He put his hands in his pockets and walked with his arrogant pace. His body was slightly stooped. There was an unruly and evil smile on the corner of his mouth, as if he didn't care about Kaido's base camp at all. Orgrim bit a cigar in his mouth, slowly exhaled a puff of smoke and said, I heard what you mean, Boss Kaido seems to be looking forward to my arrival. Quinn was stunned for a moment after listening to Orgrim's words, and then asked Master Hammer, don't you know? Listening to Doflamingo calling Orgrim Hammer, Quinn also tried calling. After observing Orgrim's expression, he found that he didn't seem to be impatient, and Quinn was a little relieved. Even though he is now following Kaido, he seems to have a very high status and is a good leader in the Beast Pirates. In terms of strength, Quinn feels that his strength can also have a place in the sea. Otherwise, Kaido would be arrogant, so he wouldn't look down on him. But compared to Orgrim, he doesn't dare to be presumptuous at all. On the one hand, it's because Orgrim is a truly ruthless person. Boss. On the other hand, it's also because he knows very well how deep his feelings are for Orgrim, the boss of Kaido. In short, he just can't afford to offend him, so he just needs to find a way to make Lord Hammer happy. What do you know? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and asked. A flattering smile appeared on Quinn's face and he explained, my boss, Kaido, has great respect for you, Mr. Hammer. On weekdays, if any of us dare to speak against you, talk bad, boss Kaido is going to beat people up. Someone said something bad about me? Orgrim looked at Quinn in surprise. Quinn was also stunned for a moment. Is this the point of what I said? I am highlighting your position of Orgrim in the heart of my boss, okay? No, I'm just making an analogy, Mr. Chui, you are an unparalleled hero, who dares to say bad things about you. Quinn quickly waved his hand and said. Let me just say that I, Orgrim, am both talented, and have decent character and strength. Except for those bastards from the world government, who would say bad things about me if they have nothing to do. Orgrim nodded with understanding. Quinn didn't know how to answer these words. Looking at Orgrim's normal expression, he realized one thing deeply, that is, he wanted to become a great man. Dude, first of all, you have to be thick-skinned. Doflamingo on the side almost laughed out loud. He is truly worthy of Lord Hammer. I admire him. It seems that because of Orgrim's calm performance, Stussy felt guilty. It was gradually dispelled, and the smile on his face became much more sincere. As soon as he entered Kaido's courtyard, Orgrim felt one thing again, that is, although Kaido is a reckless man. But the taste is indeed very good, no wonder he can write such elegant letters. At first, he thought Kaido had found some great writer in Wano to ghostwrite. After all, the culture of Wano is different from that of Flower Country. It's the same thing, and it's understandable for Orgrim to be able to write that kind of elegant classical Chinese. But when I asked Quinn just now, Quinn said that it was Kaido's own handwriting, so he let Orgrim feel it again. It's time for the mental whipping from Kaido. But now, looking at Kaido's well laid out courtyard with a landscape-like artistic conception, Orgrim can barely believe the fact that Kaido is indeed more educated than Orgrim. While Orgrim was admiring Kaido's courtyard, a very tall figure, with a delighted smile on his face, rushed out of the courtyard and strode towards Orgrim. Orgrim's height is already very prominent, at over 3 meters, half a head taller than Doflamingo. But the guy in front of him is a complete little giant, about twice as tall as Orgrim. And his body has solid muscles, and he has a fierce aura. The dragon tattoo on his half-body also highlights his domineering power. There is no doubt that this person is Kaido. Before the person arrives, the momentum arrives first, and I am afraid that it is just like ordinary people. It's impossible to stay calm in front of Kaido, right? But to Orgrim, this momentum is like a breeze blowing over the mountains, and it has no impact at all. Just like Orgrim admires Kaido very much, Kaido, after seeing Orgrim, his eyes lit up. This was the second time he saw Orgrim. The first time was on the Chambord Islands. At that time, Orgrim was in a very embarrassed state. But now you can see Orgrim's strong self-confidence and hidden powerful courage. Ha 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 ha. Orgrim brother, you have really kept me waiting for a long time. Kaido laughed loudly. Originally, Kaido wanted to come over and give Orgrim a bear hug, but he found that there was still a big difference in their physiques. In the end, he stretched out a hand. Orgrim Reem also laughed loudly and said, I'm really sorry, there were some delays on the way, and I kept you waiting for a long time, boss Kaido. As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim stretched out a hand neatly and took hold of Kaido's palm. Then, the two of them exerted force at the same time in perfect harmony, and the muscles on their arms swelled slightly. Their eyes met. With calm smiles on their faces, it didn't look like they were wrestling at all. There was no domineering power or other miscellaneous abilities, it was just a pure comparison of strength. Soon, Kaido and Orgrim loosened his grip at the same time and looked at the other person with more meaning in his eyes. Although Kaido admired Orgrim very much, after meeting him, he had to test it out. The same goes for Orgrim. The same is true. We have all known that Kaido is very strong and is the most powerful person. Biology, but after all, you have to explore it yourself. After shaking hands with each other, Kaido and Orgrim both had to admit that the other party was very strong, at least in terms of strength. Ahahaha, it turns out that it is better to meet each other than to be famous. Kaido laughed first, then looked at Stacy and said, it's true. There is a rumor in the sea that Ms. Stacy favored brother Orgrim. Now it seems that it is true. Ah. Stussy had a slightly shy smile on her face, and said to Kaido with a smile, that's not entirely true. If I really want to say it, it's because Lord Hammer took pity on me. He chatted politely with Stussy. After saying a few words, Kaido looked at Doflamingo, feeling a little surprised. He recognized Doflamingo. He was also the number one figure in the Dark World and was related to Arms, but he didn't expect to see him here. After all, Stussy was here, and he could be said to be accompanying Orgrim as a guest. Yes, it seems that Doflamingo is not a member of the Warhammer Pirates. Why did you come with me? Although it was a little strange, Kaido had a smile on his face and said to Doflamingo, there are few visitors. Doflamingo could also hear Kaido's lack of attention, but he didn't care about anything. After all, his identity and strength were all here. He was indeed a younger brother here. However, Orgrim patted Doflamingo on the shoulder and said to Kaido, Dover and I have a very close friendship. We are good friends who have known each other since Bihai. This time, there was a slight delay on the way. Because of Dover. After hearing this, Kaido felt a little bit more dissatisfied with Doflamingo. I said, why did my brother Orgrim come so late? It turns out that you, a bastard, was causing trouble. But before Kaido could speak, Orgrim continued, it's embarrassing to say that I'm used to being careless. I didn't even prepare any gifts when I came. Dover reminded me. We just happened to be here this time. Let's give you a greeting gift, Boss Kaido, so that I can express my gratitude for the help Boss Kaido gave me on the Shampoo Islands. Kaido originally had some objections to Doflamingo, but now he is happy after hearing this. That's incredible, it turns out that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Ha 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 ha, dear brother, if you can come, I have received the best gift. Do we two brothers still have to be so polite? Ah, by the way, come on, it doesn't matter what you stand here, but I'm rude, brother, come on, come in and sit down, let's have a drink and talk, Kaido said happily. Orgrim thought to himself, Kaido is too enthusiastic, isn't he too familiar? I will be polite and call you Boss Kaido, isn't it? Can't you tell that I don't want to recognize this good brother? Why the hell are you not done yet? But seeing Kaido so enthusiastic, Orgrim was too embarrassed to say anything to correct him, and finally gritted his teeth, forget it, reach out and don't hit the smiling man, isn't it okay for me to suffer this loss? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 299. Under the melodious music, the dancers wearing Wano costumes danced in front of the banquet. The food placed in front of Orgrim can be clearly seen from the food inside. This should be the heart of the sea dragon carp. I have eaten it several times. This is a unique sea beast around the waters of Wano. They can only be seen here in the world. As sea beasts, they are huge, but their hearts are very small. The heart of an adult sea dragon carp is only as big as our fingernail. The price of sea dragon carp is very high on the black market. It can be said that the body is full of treasures, and the most precious thing is naturally the heart. Stussy explained while holding dishes for Orgrim. Sea beasts are generally very large. Although Orgrim has never seen sea dragons and carps, he can imagine them. Generally speaking, creatures the heart is proportional to the volume, because the heart is a blood supply tissue. The larger the volume, the bigger the heart should be, otherwise it will not be able to support the blood supply. And Orgrim looked at the heart of the sea dragon carp in front of him. The expression is a bit surprised. If the heart of this thing is only as big as a fingernail, the dish in front of you will probably kill hundreds of them. According to Stussy's introduction, the price of this thing on the black market is very high. From this point of view, this dish is priceless. Kaido is really sincere, and this guy is really rich. Were all the dividends from the arms business used to support his luxurious and corrupt life? Envy, is this what a pirate should look like? Except for this dish, many of the dishes placed in front of Orgrim looked very exquisite and expensive, and when they tasted them, they were indeed delicious. Orgrim didn't even hear about many of the dishes. Past. However, although he was surprised in his heart, Orgrim's face was indeed very calm, as if these were not worth mentioning. He reached out and picked up a glass of wine specially provided by the Kingdom of Wano to Lord Protector Kaido, and took a sip. It was refreshing with a hint of spiciness. The spiciness hit the tongue and quickly turned into sweetness. It was indeed a good wine. Ah ha 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 ha, dear brother, come on, you have worked hard on this journey, I give you a drink. Kaido held his huge wine glass and stretched it out to Orgrim. Orgrim also had a friendly smile on his face, picked up the wine glass and clinked it with Kaido. He had said to Kaido before Dona's good brother was very unhappy. But now eating the food and wine carefully prepared by Kaido, Orgrim has finally realized Kaido's sincerity again. He wants to go to his place as Kaido's guest. Just throw a barbecue dinner, how can you spend so much money to treat Kaido to dinner? Therefore, Orgrim gritted his teeth and accepted the title of good brother. Boss Kaido, Wano country is such a good place, I'm a little envious of it. Orgrim said with a smile. What are you envious of? If you like it, just stay here for a while. I will take you to the island in person to see it. You can come here anytime in the future. No, you have to come more often. We need to communicate more, Kaido said with a smile. It can be seen that Orgrim is very satisfied with his preparations, which makes him feel that his hard work has not been in vain, so satisfied. Under Kaido's enthusiasm, Orgrim and Kai most of them were talking here and there. After 3 or 5 glasses of wine, and the preparations for the banquet were indeed very thorough. The unfamiliarity between the two people quickly dissipated and they became familiar with each other. Kaido took a sip. Orgrim no longer dislikes a good brother. As Kaido introduced the cotters under him, Orgrim also officially got to know Flame, Yin, and Plague. Quinn and Jack, who is still a younger brother. Although this guy Yin is also very enthusiastic about Orgrim, Orgrim can feel that this guy is only enthusiastic on the surface, but he probably doesn't care about him in his heart. You have a cold, right? But Orgrim didn't say much. Maybe he will become the famous 3 disasters in the future, but in Orgrim's eyes, he is still a nobody. What is there to be angry with? Quinn, on the other hand, although this guy doesn't know what he is thinking, he is indeed a smooth guy. He keeps boasting about Kaido and himself. No matter how sincere it is, everyone likes to hear nice words, so Orgrim treats him. The impression is very good. As for Jack, he is dull and stupid. He looks very young. He looks like a teenager, very green. I can tell, Boss Kaido, you have a soft spot for people with animal-type abilities. I didn't seem to see any other types of people with abilities along the way. Orgrim took a sip of wine and said to Kaido. Looking back, Kaido still has other devil fruit ability users, but most of them were conquered by him, such as Hawkins and Dodeci and APU and so on. In addition, Kaido has always loved animal-type ability users. After hearing Orgrim's inquiry, Kaido did not hide anything and said openly, no, yes, bro, I really like animal-type ability users. After all, there are not many people like you and me in this world, and animal-type ability users happen to have the same energy as the two of us. Why are they so powerful? It's full of power. If you ask me, this is how fighting should be fought to make it exciting. Those fancy things look so powerful. If I hit them with the stick, they would all be destroyed. On the contrary, it's an animal-type ability user. Maybe he can still do it. Get up, isn't it obvious enough who is strong and who is weak? I have to say that Kaido's remarks are indeed very reckless. Having said this, Kaido looked at Doflamingo, who had not spoken and was slowly eating delicious food, and said with a smile, isn't Dover a middleman in the dark world? I heard that your industry involves a lot of business. Do you also sell devil fruits? If you encounter any animal-type devil fruits in the future, you must give priority to me, I am not short of money. Listening to Kaido's words, Doflamingo said with a smile, of course. After a pause, Doflamingo spoke again, Boss Kaido, aren't you curious about what gift Master Hammer brought you this time? Kaido was stunned for a moment, and then looked at Orgrim. After all, although Orgrim said he had prepared gifts or something, Kaido just saw that his hands were empty and he didn't seem to have taken anything. That's very interesting. Maybe the thing was on the boat. Orgrim didn't mention it, and he didn't rush to ask, otherwise it would be embarrassing. At this time, Doflamingo suddenly mentioned this matter, and Kaido also looked at Orgrim curiously. Grim. Orgrim smiled, took a sip of wine and said, Boss Kaido, I am going to send you a steady stream of animal devil fruits to help you fulfill your dream. Kaido listened to Orgrim's words, his eyes sparkling with excitement and anticipation. Brother, do you have a lot of animal-type devil fruits in your hands? How many? 10. 20. Shouldn't it be hundreds? Kaido asked with his eyes twinkling. Kaido has always wanted to form a legion composed of animal-type ability users to sweep across all directions. But the problem is that devil fruits are very rare and cannot be common in the sea, let alone he said that he had to identify animal-type devil fruits. Even if he kept looking and buying them all year round, Kaido couldn't get 10. And there are indeed very few animal-type devil fruits under Orgrim's command. The ability user, that Rengar, used to follow Shiji. As for Lucci and others, Kaido didn't even know there was such a person. But the Warhammer pirates are not small in size. If there were no demons every year, Kaido doesn't believe that the fruits are coming in. From this point of view, after so many years of accumulation, the Warhammer pirates must have 10, 8, or more animal-type devil fruits in their hands, right? If Orgrim is willing to give these away for himself, Kaido was really happy. But soon, Kaido thought, he can't let Orgrim suffer this loss. Devil fruit is a priceless thing, and the more powerful ones, billions of dollars go out casually, and the same goes for the animal department. If he really gets 10 or 8 of them for himself, it is also a lot of wealth. How should I repay him? Reciprocity is the best, especially if you are a doer. Big brother, you can't let your wise brother suffer. I have to say that Kaido really regards Orgrim as his wise brother. However, before Kaido could think of any good way to give back to Orgrim, where's Rim? Orgrim grinned, put on an evil smile and said, Boss Kaido, I told you, it's an endless supply of animal devil fruits. Kaido was stunned again, with some confusion on his expression. Before he could ask, Orgrim said softly, that's right, Boss Kaido, have you ever heard of artificial devil fruit technology? This technology can. Kaido held the wine glass and took a few sips while listening to Orgrim's introduction very seriously. Soon, he understood what Orgrim meant. This was a business cooperation. But he also heard Orgrim's sincerity, because Orgrim didn't mean to fool him at all. He said directly that this technology was an immature technology and could only be used on animal-type devil fruits. And this kind of devil fruit can be called shoddy, and the quality cannot be truly guaranteed, but it can indeed give humans various abilities of animals. Look, when people recommend their own products, they always boast of their good qualities, but my good brother explained all the shortcomings to me clearly as soon as he came up. This is one of my own, and he is my good brother. This artificial devil fruit has many flaws, but it is more effective in its large quantity. I think you, Boss Kaido, need this very much. Orgrim said with a smile on his face. Kaido nodded thoughtfully. It is indeed the case. The annual animal devil fruits can at most satisfy his cotters, or provide them to some elite combatants. Members can use it. It is simply impossible to spread it to the entire beast pirates on a large scale. Kaido has more than 10,000 of his subordinates, but how many of them can he find every year with the ability of the animal devil fruit? It's hard to raise 1,000, let alone tens of thousands. So the ability user army Kaido wants to build now only covers the level of cotters and elite combatants. The rest of the cannon fodder is better filled with ordinary juniors. He can't meet so many demands. But now, the artificial devil fruit given by Orgrim is very interesting. Once the energy is produced, he can continuously provide his subordinates with low-quality animals devil fruit. This thing is very useful. It can be used by those cannon fodder boys. Even if the quantity is increased, maybe there will be a few powerful abilities that are of acceptable quality. By then, with the real animal-type devil fruit using the Esper cotters as a framework, we built a legion in which all members can have animal abilities. Isn't this my dream, Kaido? Thinking of this, Kaido became excited, and when he looked at Orgrim, he also becoming more friendly. He is indeed my good brother. This gift is so satisfying to me, Kaido thought in his heart. Brother Orgrim, I am very interested in what you said. If this kind of artificial devil fruit can be continuously provided, it will indeed help me realize my dream a lot, but, I wonder what the price is? Kaido asked. A normal devil fruit, no matter how rubbish it is, would cost hundreds of millions. This thing, inferior products shouldn't be that expensive, right? Originally, Orgrim was planning to come and kill Kaido, but today he really felt Kaido's sincerity. Since Kaido treated him with sincerity, he was too embarrassed to attack Kaido. This matter has not been put into production yet, but I think once it can be mass-produced on the assembly line, the price can be reduced to an extremely low level. Don't worry, I will definitely satisfy you, Boss Kaido. Orgrim thought for a while. Kaido stopped asking any more questions after hearing this. He happily patted Orgrim on the shoulder and said, then it all depends on you, dear brother. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 300. Although Kaido admires Orgrim very much, everyone is a big boss. From a standpoint, only when interests can be tied can a good relationship be truly established. In the previous arms business, the two of them shared the market, which was considered a healthy competition and a kind of side interest bundling. But now, with the artificial devil fruit as a bridge, the relationship between the Beast Pirates and the Warhammer Pirates can be closer. And judging from the current situations, there will be no conflicts of interest between the two parties in a short period of time. This is a prerequisite for the relationship between the two parties to move forward. So after chatting for a while, Kaido suddenly asked Brother Orgrim, what do you think of the Pirate Alliance? The Pirate Alliance is not a very rare thing. Many pirates on the sea like to form alliances. In fact, Orgrim, Kaido, the Big Mom pirates, and the Whitebeard pirates all have allies in this regard. But their alliance is of course dominated by them. Just like the various independent captains under Whitebeard, such as the Dutiful Sun, the Great Vortex Spider, and Skyard. Although they are like father and son, apart from these, they are the pirate alliance. Shiji's original large fleet was almost of the same nature. But at the level of Orgrim and others, they often do not form such alliances of the same level. Again, who will be the leader of the alliance? Listening to Kaido's question, Orgrim's eyes darkened slightly. Sure enough, did Kaido invite him to Wano country just to mention this matter? After thinking for a while, Orgrim smiled and said it depends on local conditions and different people. There are good and bad. It mainly depends on the needs. The little pirate needs the protection of the big pirate, so he is willing to join this alliance. The big pirates need the small pirates to provide corresponding benefits and combatants, so they will form this kind of alliance. This is the demand relationship. Kaido glanced at Orgrim thoughtfully. After a moment of silence, he asked again, "My dear brother, don't you have any needs in this regard?" Orgrim grinned and said, "I don't think there is one for the time being." Kaido nodded and picked up the wine glass. "Take a sip." Then he smacked his lips and said with some emotion, "Brother, when I was working under rocks, I got to know Shiji and Newgate. Those two guys were much better than us at first, and they were indeed the same later. In this way, the Rocks pirates were disbanded in the Battle of God's Canyon, and everyone went their separate ways. In the end, the ones who stood at the top of the pirates were Shiki, Whitebeard, and Roger." Orgrim did not interrupt Kaido's memories. "And now, Roger is dead, and that guy Shiji seems to be living in seclusion?" Kaido looked at Orgrim. Orgrim nodded with a smile and said, "Yes, Boss Shiji has indeed gone into seclusion. At least for a short period of time, he will no longer interfere with matters on the sea. Ha ha ha, I don't know what that guy is thinking. With his structure, he should be able to understand that as pirates, we will retreat if we don't advance. It's hard to say whether we can come out again in the future after living in seclusion for no reason." Kaido smiled. But looking at Orgrim, he seemed to be able to understand Shiji again. With such a good successor as Orgrim, as long as the relationship is good, it will be a lot easier to get back together in the future. In short, nowadays, the four strongest pirates on the sea are you, my brother, Lingling, and that guy Newgate, right? Kaido asked. Orgrim nodded. "There is nothing to say. It is true." Kaido took another sip of wine and then continued, "However, although the world regards us as the same person, among all pirates, there is only one person who is truly powerful." "Whitebeard," Orgrim said softly. Kaido nodded and said, "That's right, Whitebeard. That guy Newgate is simply a monster. When he was young, he was extremely strong. Now, it is even more so. His Whitebeard pirates can also be said to be full of talents and the strongest pirate group on the sea. It's them, right?" Orgrim nodded slightly in approval. To sum up, the captains and cotters of the Whitebeard pirates are actually not as elite as those under his own men. If they are released one-on-one, Mihawk, Barrett, Beckman can beat them. But the problem is that Newgate is very strong and has many sons. But this is only for the Warhammer pirates. When the Whitebeard pirates fought against Kaido and Charlotte Lingling, the comparison between their cotters clearly showed that the people under Whitebeard were stronger, especially its now. Anyway, overall, the Whitebeard pirates have no obvious shortcomings, so under the shadow of Whitebeard, they are well deserved to be the strongest pirate group. It is a difficult goal to defeat the Whitebeard pirates alone. Kaido said softly, then looked at Orgrim with bright eyes and said, "But if you and I join forces, these will not be a problem, whether it's Whitebeard, Lingling, or the Navy headquarters, we can all be fearless, start the top war on the sea, and plunder the entire world, right?" Before Orgrim could say anything, Kaido said in a deep voice, "So, this time I invite you, my dear brother, to come to Wano country as a guest. I also want to mention this matter to you. You and I, brothers, will work together to conquer the world." "How?" Kaido said this, Queen Stussy's heart was beating thumpingly. Although Orgrim had already made plans to reject Kaido before, it was obvious that when he came to Wano country afterwards, Kaido entertained Orgrim with 100% sincerity. Judging from Stussy's understanding of Orgrim, Orgrim was obviously a soft-spoken guy. Don't. It seems that he is sometimes shameless, and even often escapes from the Navy, but that is because the Navy has nothing to do with him. If you use any threatening means with him, he will never give in, and he will fight you to the death with 100% chance. On the contrary, if you talk to him sincerely, the better you treat him, the better he will give you feedback. So Stussy was afraid that Orgrim would not be able to think about it, so he directly agreed to the alliance with Kaido. Then the world would really be in chaos. But soon, Stussy breathed a sigh of relief because she saw Orgrim slowly shaking his head. "Boss Kaido, I have to say that your proposal is very interesting, but I want to ask you, after this alliance, who will make the decision?" Orgrim asked. "Of course we two brothers make the decision together," Kaido said without hesitation. "But you should also understand that this is almost impossible," Orgrim said softly. Kaido was silent for a moment after hearing this. "You just used the phrase joining forces to seize the world, and that is indeed the case. The best that you and I can do is to join forces to seize the world. What happens after we seize it? Can we still share the world?" Orgrim asked unceremoniously. Kaido opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he failed to say it after all. Yes, in the end, can we really share the world? Even if he agree, can Orgrim agree? As long as the two of them are selfish, this matter is impossible. And do the two of them have selfish motives? Need to ask? 100% yes. After that, everyone depends on their ability. Kaido finally said this. "Gee ha 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 ha, yes, I think so too." Orgrim laughed. "Brother Sien, do you agree?" Kaido said with a happy face. But Orgrim waved his hand and said, "No, let's put down the pirate alliance for now. To be honest, our Warhammer pirates are not ready yet." "Where are you, Boss Kaido, are you really ready?" Kaido frowned slightly. If he had to say it, he wouldn't have it. Otherwise, what kind of army of ability users would he have? Since he has this intention, it means that he, Kaido, has not allowed the beast's pirates to develop to the extreme. Looking at Kaido's hesitant expression, Orgrim smiled and said, "It seems that Boss Kaido, like me, is not ready for this. We can imagine that if we directly, what problems will we face if we reach an alliance?" "War," Kaido said without hesitation. "Yes, as long as he forms an alliance with Orgrim, once the news spreads, a full-scale war will immediately break out. Even if they are not prepared to start a war directly, Charlotte Lingling, Navy headquarters, even Whitebeard will not sit idly by. After all, the longer this alliance lasts, the more prepared Orgrim and Kaido will be. Will the rest of the people prepare for this incident? It must be that the alliance is only in name, but also if it is not implemented, it would be safest to go to war directly and break their relationship. But the problem is that Orgrim does not want to see this kind of all-out war, at least for now. It's not the time to start a real war yet, so let's put the alliance aside for now. But in my opinion, you and I have the same aspirations, Boss Kaido. We, the Warhammer pirates and the Beast pirates, must first build a friendly relationship. Wouldn't it be better to have a cooperative relationship?" Orgrim said with a smile. Kaido was still a little depressed when he heard Orgrim's rejection, but when he heard Orgrim's change of tone, he started to think again. Yes. Although the alliance is somewhat inappropriate, and I am indeed not ready to start a war directly, it is still completely possible for the two parties to establish a friendly relationship. And this will also allow the two pirate groups to get familiar with each other, and create a real foundation for the future. Lay a solid foundation for the alliance. Once the time is right, he and Orgrim will raise their arms, and the Beast Pirates and the Warhammer Pirates will start a war on the world. This is not bad. Brother Sien, you are right. Brother, I am a little impatient. Although we feel like old friends at first sight, we still need to communicate more and get to know each other more. Kaido said with a smile on his face again. Yes, that's what I meant. Orgrim also said with a smile. The war between you and Lingling has been going on for a year. Brother, I have some relationship with Lingling. Do you want me to come and make peace? Kaido asked. That's not necessary. This can be regarded as a silent understanding between Big Mom and I. This war must continue to be fought. The advantages outweigh the disadvantages, Orgrim waved his hand and said. Then it seems like I don't need to help, Kaido asked again. Of course not. How can it be so troublesome, Orgrim responded. Just when Kaido and Orgrim were chatting here. At this time, at Marine Headquarters Marineford, the Sengoku Admiral was also looking at the information in his hand. Are you unable to control the affairs in Wano? We can only know that Orgrim entered Wano country, the Warring States General asked a Rear Admiral in front of his desk. Yes, the Rear Admiral said. What about CP? No valuable information was given, the Warring States General asked again. Nor the Rear Admiral still responded calmly. After hearing this, the Warring States General nodded first, then put down the information in his hand, picked up a photo from the table, and looked at it. Is this guy really a disciple of Orgrim? After watching for a while, Warring States suddenly asked. The Rear Admiral quickly said there is a high probability that CP has also given similar information. It is reported that this guy was brought by Orgrim from the Sky Island. He has been cultivated by his side since he was a child. During this war, he was just released into the sea. Moreover, Orgrim directly gave him the Thunder Fruit. It can be imagined that Orgrim treated him attention. Yes, the Thunder Fruit has been cultivated around me since childhood. Even if he is not a disciple of Orgrim, he is still a person with close relationships and deep feelings. Otherwise, why would he give all the Thunder Fruits to him? Almirode, Sengoku murmured softly. Then, a gleam flashed across his eyes, and he looked at the Rear Admiral and said, Stolobelly, go check this Enero for me. I want his whereabouts. Can you effectively attack the Warhammer pirates? Maybe it falls on this guy. Yes, General. Stolobelly responded in a deep voice.